In this video, we're going to check out the audio settings when your system is set up in network mode on your Pioneer EX receiver. Even though your particular in-dash receiver may have buttons on the side, or across the bottom like this one, the on-screen operation in this demonstration is identical for the following Pioneer EX models: AVH-500EX, AVH-501EX, AVH-600EX, AVH-601EX. So on this receiver, I have powered this up for the very first time, or I've done a system restore on the receiver, and everything is restored back to the factory settings. So the first thing that I see when I power up the system is what language do you want, and in this case I'm going to choose English. And the next thing you see is the speaker mode settings. Now we have two choices here. We have standard mode and we have network mode. If you want to set up your system in standard mode, please be sure to check out the standard mode audio settings video. In this case, we're going to choose network mode and show you the audio settings here. So I chose network mode and I'm going to say OK. Now the warning is going to come up, and the warning will be here. I can say OK or just wait a couple of seconds and the warning will go away. And that will bring up the Pioneer system. As you can see, the next head units have three sets of RCA outputs for operating external amplifiers. Now, when set up in network mode, those RCA outputs are high, mid, and low output. High, mid, and low in network mode. If you're looking to set up as front, rear, and sub, that is standard mode. Front, rear, and sub is standard mode. In this case, it is high, mid, and low set up in network mode. I'm going to choose an audio source here, so I'm just going to choose the AM/FM radio, and when that comes up, it's going to have some volume, so I'm going to turn the volume down, and we will walk through the audio settings here. Let's see, I'm just going to touch the gears up here, and I'm going to come down to the speaker. That's my audio settings, and the first thing we see here is the graphic EQ, and there is a full video on how to operate the graphic EQ. Be sure to check out the full graphic EQ video. Let's go back up. Next up is my balance control. Now if I open that up, please note that in network mode I have a balance control which is right and left. And I can also drag this around on the screen if I want to. But please note that in network mode there is no fader control, no front to rear, because in network mode all of the speakers are considered to be front speakers, no front and rear. So we'll go back up. Next up is the mute level. And in the mute level, I have three different options to choose from. I have attenuate, mute, or off. Now, the mute level, it refers to when you are receiving turn-by-turn instruction from the nav system, or when you get a phone call. You have three different options. The first is attenuate. If you choose that, that will lower the volume by about 20 dB from the volume of any music that you're listening to by about 20 dB, so that you can take a phone call or hear the turn-by-turn instruction. If you want, you can also choose mute, and what that will do is completely mute any music that is playing while you're on a phone call or while you hear the navigation system talk. And the third option there is to switch this off completely, and that means when you get a phone call or when the navigation system wants to talk to you, it won't affect the audio system at all. It will continue to play at its normal level, or whatever level you have set. So I'm going to choose to mute the system when I get a phone call or when I get turn-by-turn instruction from nav. Next up is the source level adjuster, and you can see that that is grayed out. In order to get to the source level adjuster, we need to choose an audio source other than AM/FM radio. So we'll choose a different source here. I'm just going to touch my home screen. There's an easy shortcut to CD. We'll choose that, and we'll go back now into the audio settings. And in a moment here, you'll see the source level adjuster will come up. Now, let's open up source level adjuster. And what this allows me to do is adjust the level of the source as compared to FM. So all sources, CD, USB, Bluetooth, whatever else you happen to be listening to are all compared to FM. Now, I can make the volume of the CD player a little louder or a little quieter as compared to FM. Now, when you're on the AM/FM source, the source level adjuster here is not available because that is the baseline for all the source level adjusting. Now, the idea here is that when I switch between sources, I shouldn't hear a big jump in volume from one source to the next source. So when you're done making your adjustments there, we can go back up. And let's see, let's scroll down a little here so we can see what we're working with. Next up is our subwoofer control, and right now you can see subwoofer is switched off, and down here our subwoofer settings are grayed out. When I switch the subwoofer output on, now my subwoofer settings become available. And let's check the speaker level. So with the system set up in network mode, I have different options here for speaker outputs and speaker levels than I do in standard mode. In standard mode, I see front, rear, and subwoofer output. In network mode, which is where we are now, we have the high speakers, the mid-range speakers, and the subwoofer. So it's high, mid, and sub, high, mid, and low. And here we can make adjustments to the volume of any given speaker in the system as compared to the other speakers in the system. So I'm making the high, the tweeter on the left-hand side, a little bit lower in volume here. And I can do the same thing with the subwoofer if I want to. Now for best audio control and best audio quality, be sure to set all of these settings at 0 or lower. If you need to compensate for another speaker, try to lower the volume of the other speakers in the system rather than raise the volume of one given speaker. So when you're done making your adjustments to the speaker levels, we'll go back up. Next up is our crossover settings, and we'll open up the crossover settings, and we have a number of different crossover settings to choose from here. Right now we're on the high output, and this is a high pass filter for the high output. If we scroll over, we see the low pass filter for the mid-range. So this is low pass filter for the mid-range. Scroll over one more. This is the high pass filter for the mid-range. Right now it's switched on or switched off. We can switch the high pass filter for the mid-range on right there. And one more over, and this is the crossover for our subwoofer. So let's walk through some of these different settings. For my subwoofer control, I have crossover points available from 25 Hertz all the way up to 250 Hertz, and I have 1/3 octave crossover points for each of these settings. So 25, slide this up a little, 31.5, there's 40. Available crossover points include 25 Hertz, 31.5, 40, 50, 63, 80, 100, 125, 160, 200, and 250 Hertz. Now on any of these crossover points, your slope options are 6, 12, we missed 18, there we go, there's 18, 24, 30, or 36 dB per octave. Also with the subwoofer control, I have the option to switch the phase from normal to reverse phase, and be sure to check in your vehicle if normal or reverse phase works a little bit better for you. So that's the subwoofer crossovers and slope selection. Let's go up to, this is now the mid-range. This is the high-pass filter on the mid-range, and the exact same crossover points are available to me. All the way from 25 all the way up to 250 Hertz. Exactly the same crossover points are available as the subwoofer, though this is independent of the subwoofer crossover. And I have the same slopes available here from 6 down to 24 dB per octave. So the slope is a little bit different than the subwoofer control, because you can go up to 36 dB per octave on the subwoofer control. Here your option is out to 24. Now if we go over to the low pass filter on the mid-range, you'll see that we have some different crossover points available. We go from 12.5K all the way down to 1.25. And let's see if we can move through these. 1.25 to 1.6. Available crossover points include 1.25 kilohertz, 1.6, 2 kilohertz, 2.5, 3.15, 4 kilohertz, 5 kilohertz, 6.3, 8, 10, and 12.5 kilohertz. And 12.5 kilohertz. So those are our crossover selections, and our slopes will go from 6 to 12. 18 or 24 dB per octave on any given crossover point. So that's the low pass filter for the mid-range. Then if we skip up to the high crossover, this is the high pass filter for the high. We have the exact same crossover points available here that we do in the low pass filter for the mid-range. So from 1.25 all the way out to 12.5 kilohertz, and then the slopes are the same 6, 12, 18, or 24 dB per octave. And of course we have a phase control for the high that we can switch to normal or reverse phase. If we come back, here's our phase control for the mid-range, and we can switch that low pass filter on or off to make it a straight pass-through if we want. Low pass or high pass filter for the mid-range, again a phase control, and we can switch that high pass filter on or off and make it a straight pass-through if we want. And back to our subwoofer, of course we can make that a straight pass-through, or we can switch the low pass filter on. So once you're done making your crossover and your slope settings, we'll go back up and we'll roll down here a little further to our subwoofer settings. And all subwoofer settings really is a direct shortcut to the crossover and slope settings for the subwoofer control. So we'll go back up here. Next up is our listening position. And with listening position, these are factory presets to help steer the image around the vehicle. So we can choose to steer the image to the front left, all front speakers, or the front right. So for right now, I'm going to choose the front setting. Let's choose the front left setting for right now, and we'll go back up. And we'll scroll down here to our time alignment and open up time alignment. So right now you can see that time alignment is on, and we have the same options here for time alignment that we do for our listening level, for our speaker levels. So we have control over the tweeter and the mid-range for both the right side and the left side, and the subwoofer control. So for any of these speakers, you can make the speaker appear to be further away or closer than it is. So right now the left tweeter is shown at 40 inches away from the driver's position. So we can make that a little bit further by 1 inch at 1 inch increments, or a little closer. And we have that same control for each speaker in the system. Now please note, if I switch time alignment off, I have no control over these at all. I need to switch time alignment on in order to make adjustments here. So we'll go back up. Next up is auto EQ, and our auto EQ and time alignment measurements. To auto EQ your system, you're going to need the optional CD-MC20 microphone available from Pioneer, and the system will automatically time align and EQ the system for you. Let's scroll down here a little bit further. Here we can save the settings. Once you've set the system up the way you like it, you can choose to save the settings. We'll say OK. Now my settings are saved. I need to touch the screen again to get past that. Next up we have load settings. And here are my initial settings and the sound settings that I created. And if I use an auto time alignment and auto EQ system, I can also get into the settings that were created by the system's computer. And then my car settings are available for the iDataLink Maestro RR system. So let's go back up here. Next up is my bass boost control, and here I can add a little more bottom into the system, a plus or minus 6 that I can add in if I want. And we will roll down here a little further to the bottom. Next up is our rear speaker output, and you can see that that is grayed out. Rear speaker output is not available as an adjustment when you're in the network mode. Rear speaker output can be adjusted when you're set up in standard mode, but when you're in network mode, your rear RCAs are set up as the mid-range or the bandpass output, and the rear speaker outputs, speaker level outputs, are also set up exactly the same way as the mid-range or the bandpass output. Next up is our loudness control. Right now loudness is switched off, and we have the option to use it on low, mid, or high. Loudness is typically used in many systems to help compensate at low volume levels to make the sound a little more realistic. Next up is our automatic level control. Right now it is switched off, and we can choose mode 1 or mode 2. Automatic level control will control the volume level of different MP3 and compressed audio files when they play back for you. So if you have one file that is recorded particularly loud and another that is recorded particularly softly, mode 1 or mode 2 here will compress the dynamic range of the system and play back the volume a little more evenly for you. If you don't want that compressed dynamic range, be sure to switch the automatic level control off. And finally, we have Pioneer's Advanced Sound Retriever. Advanced Sound Retriever can help your compressed audio sound a little bit more like CD audio. And you have three different settings for Advanced Sound Retriever: Mode 1, Mode 2, or you can switch it off. Now, Advanced Sound Retriever works on any audio that is played back through USB, through the CD slot, or through Bluetooth audio. You can choose the level of Advanced Sound Retriever that works best for you. So for right now, I will choose mode number 1. When you're done making your audio adjustments, you can hit the X to escape.